Good morning, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we are at 16740 Northeast Halsey Street here in Portland. We are actually located out at the front of the unit that faces out to, or I guess unit which is 1535 Northeast 168th Place. That's where the actual sewer cleanout is. This duplex shares a sewer line. I've already verified that. Just had the home inspector do a toilet flush while I had standing over the cleanout here. And that's a very normal configuration, especially for this era. Anyhow, we got a 4-inch cast iron cleanout. We're just to the left of the doorway for this particular part of the duplex. 4-inch cast iron cleanout. We're going to check the overall condition, serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Water is running. I've got that running from the opposite unit. It's the other way I verify these things. I get water coming through here from another unit. That's how another way I can tell they're tied together. So anyway, we're gonna zero the foot counter out. Off we go here. Now this, right as we drop in here, is the location we're gonna take a decent look at on the way out. We do have some standing water here. You know, and I'm not the biggest stickler in the world on standing water. I've been doing this 13 years. I've cambered about 24 or 5,000 sewer lines. The scenarios, though, where I do not like standing water are when it's very close proximity to the home and when it's in older pipe materials. Cast iron is a very solid pipe product. In fact, it has some big advantages over even modern day plastic pipe. The downside is it has a rougher texture to the inside of it. So you take that standing water we had there right out of the gate and you put that same exact standing water in a plastic sewer line. A plastic line is infinitely less likely to cause a problem because the smoothness of the pipe walls. Standing water always slows things down to some extent. When you couple that with rougher pipe materials, that combination can indeed cause blockages, and especially when it's right up next to the house. So it doesn't guarantee backups will happen, but it's a much more likely scenario. So we do have root penetration here right at the transition over to concrete pipe. We'll revisit that on the way out. And we'll take a locate. In fact, that's probably where we're going to do one of our initial locates there. That'll kill two birds with one stone. It'll show us where the roots are coming through and also help verify what street we're going out to here. We've got some decent amount of standing water out in the concrete pipe here towards the end of it. This, I'm hoping, though, is out into city territory at this point. In fact, for all I know right now, we could be in the main lateral. We've been underwater for so long here. Camera's trying to pop out of the water. All right, I'm gonna go grab my locator and see where we are here. Yeah, right now I think we're actually in the main lateral. The locate orientation I'm getting shows my camera going up and down the street rather than across it. So it looks like at some point here we crossed into the main lateral, which I kind of felt that with the camera. It's just very difficult to actually see where it's at. I just located the camera head out on 168th Place there, kind of near the intersection, good 20 feet or more from the intersection, but on that road. So it looks like as the line makes its way out here, it looks like it runs toward Halsey and then turns to shoot out to 168th before getting to Halsey. That kind of gives you an idea. So what I'm most interested in here is seeing how much, if any, of the concrete pipe is on property. This is where we're running into some issues here. A lot of standing water toward the end of the line. But if that falls into city territory, you can always forward it to the city, but my experience with them in bellies is they often don't mess with them too much. Sometimes they'll put them on a cleaning schedule. They'll come out and jet them here and there, but a lot of cities don't really deem bellies as a repair-worthy item anymore. They've been inundated with so many repairs on that kind of stuff over the years. They used to, but these days, they often will put them on a schedule and eventually repair them when they do other street projects. They're kind of doing multiple things at one time. So anyway, we've got roots here at 42 feet. As far as where the main connection is at, I mean, we made it out to around 80 feet. It's probably somewhere around 65, 70 feet is my guess, but you just can't see it. All right, so where I'm picking this up here, and I'm gonna push out just a little bit further, just to double check here. I like to get my antenna completely past the transition. Alrighty, so I've snapped a photo of this location with my locator sitting on the ground where the pistol grip part of my locator handle is. Part you actually hold with your hand physically, that is right where it's at. I'm picking this up under the sidewalk, but very close to the sidewalk edge where the edge meets the gravel curb strip. Unfortunately, this is prior to the face of the curb, so this does fall into to homeowner responsibility. The plus side is this is something you can do an epoxy liner on, theoretically. As long as there's nothing too crazy about the turns in the line, you've got a 4-inch and 6-inch line to work with there. I don't see any obvious reason as to why that can't be done. This joint here also is showing a level of separation. What's hard to tell is that stringy item there looks a little bit more like it could be something like a tampon string. But what I was just about to say, if you're standing on 168th facing 1535, there's a walkway that leads up to the front door of 1535. If you're, again, facing the house from 168th, about 10 feet or so, maybe 15 feet to the right of the walkway, going up the sidewalk, the sidewalk squares here are big, huge rectangles. They're not the smaller size you'd normally see. They're big ones. About 10 to 15 feet to the right of the walkway that leads up to the door, you're going to see a crack that goes down the middle of the sidewalk. Where I'm locating this is almost directly under that crack or in line with it. My concern here is this joint may very well be open to the ground. It's separated enough that it could be. In conjunction with those roots there, this is one where I would look into, if you're going to do the liner style, I would start the liner back here just before this joint and line right over the top of it to ensure that joint is sealed. My concern is that crack in the sidewalk could potentially be related to the fact that the joint and or joints may be allowing groundwater and dirt to seep through, which leads to hydro erosion and can cause not only the line to settle, but also it can suck the dirt out from over top of the line that supports the sidewalk above it. So it's hard to say if they are indeed related to each other, but they're so close to each other that it would not surprise me one bit. I've seen it plenty of times over my career. Anyway, part of the reason I'm not putting markings down here is my locator, my locates are kind of jumping around a bit. My signal is moving around like I want to see it move. Every time I move the camera, my signal is also moving. It's the depths are just coming in very jumpy. And this is one, first and foremost, because it's under sidewalk like that, and it's at, if my depths are coming in relatively accurate, I'm getting somewhere around 8-9 feet deep. In fact, this spot right here, that may very well be a root too. It could be a smaller one. You start to go underneath a bunch of rose bushes right here, and rose bushes have a very robust root system. They're slightly less terrible than a full-size tree. They have a very, very big root system and a powerful one at that. I see roses intrude through sewer lines almost more frequently than I do trees. They're very frequently in yards, for one thing. And you got a little bit of debris bottom right-hand corner of the screen there. That, as far as I can tell, just looks like some kind of excuse me, toilet paper or something of that nature. You got a few joints in here though that are a little bit suspect. They're showing some separation. They're also right in the vicinity of where these roots are at. I'm fairly certain you've got a root there. The way that that's coming through the line, what I think it is a smaller root that's been gunked over. It's way too thick to be a cobweb. Way too thick. In fact, if you look down at the bottom there, it flares out into a bunch of smaller strands, which is very indicative of roots. So it looks like you've got roots coming all the way back here. So ideally what you want to do here, this joint even shows a little bit of juxtaposition. I would recommend, especially if you're going the trenchless route, is lining everything from this joint right here and overlap that joint, overlap the transition joint. In fact, what you really want to do is take the update just past the curb. Not doing so is a hugely wasted opportunity. And what you end up running the risk of is roots punching through just beyond that point before the face of the curb or at it at some point, and that's going to fall into your territory. Extending the liner an extra couple feet hardly adds any cost onto things, and it ensures if a root ever does come through that concrete pipe or anywhere beyond the liner, it's doing it undoubtedly in city responsibility. Transition joints are the weakest joints in your sewer line. That's why you see that the biggest root intrusion here is at the transition from cast to concrete. They're the weakest joints to roots. And so the last thing I want to see someone do is stop a repair shy of the face of the curb by a couple feet, which might only save a couple $100 or so, and end up with a re-intrusion. The other advantage in doing an epoxy liner on this is it is essentially a jointless pipe product. You don't have all the weak points in it like you do with a regular sewer line. You're going to have a whole bunch of foliage around the sewer line after the repair is done, which can re-intrude the sewer line. So there's an added benefit in bolstering up the line here to re-intrusions in the future. So I'm going to recommend that repair start here. Whether you do it by a trenchless system or a dig style, I would recommend doing it from this point here. This joint is shifted, and there's a couple of other ones beyond this point. You've also got roots in between here and the larger root at the transition to concrete. Back in here, I cannot even pick up a signal right here for some reason. I don't know if it's interference with the power lines overhead, and it does happen from time to time. So this is not even a spot I can put a locate down here. So if you do any digging, relocating is needed. I don't trust the depths I'm getting. I don't want to go writing stuff on the ground when my locates are coming in the way they are. Anyway, the transition there is a few feet from the curb, so accounting for that, I would recommend you take the repair here from about 31 feet out to approximately 45 feet. That should get you to at the curb or just beyond it approximately. Then everything beyond that point, once you start getting into the standing water issues, that's all out in the roadway and city responsibility. So that joint too shows a little bit of movement. Whether it's open to the ground or not is harder to tell. Sometimes you get a joint that was put together a little bit separated and the joint is completely sealed up. I don't see much movement here as far as settling issues goes. As far as I can tell, that joint appears to be closed off to the ground. I don't see anything obvious going on there other than there's a little bit of spacing at the top of the pipe. Right now my camera's upside down. No obvious root hairs or anything are sticking through it. Similar thing right here. A little bit of spacing, but nothing, no dirt clods sticking through, no root hairs, no groundwater staining. That's the way to do it here. All right, the standing water you do have here, let's see, let's let the water settle in for a moment. It's pretty darn minor. Once you let it settle into place, you're working with about a 1/4 inch or so. I had a bathtub running. That's why I always let the line drain out completely. My camera's nosedived right there. That's why it all of a sudden went underwater. The standing water there is not so significant, and I'm not seeing really much in the way of buildup there. I'm more concerned about the roots and what those are going to turn into. If we had more standing water there, I'd be more concerned about it. But with a bathtub running full bore, it'll exaggerate a 1/4 inch of water into what looks like an inch or two. So recommend the spot repair there from about 31 feet to about 45 feet approximately. Obviously that needs to be relocated to ensure that that repair extends to at least the face of the curb. Ideally you want to go just beyond that point. That way you can mitigate any issues that can arise from roots going through the transition. If a root comes through the transition right on the face of the curb, the city will put it on the homeowner almost every time. So if you can take that just past that point, you help to mitigate any risk of that in the future. You know, in an ideal world, obviously this is an older sewer line. Everything prior to about 31 feet looks like it's in good shape, especially when you consider its age. In a perfect world, especially if you're going to go the liner route, you know, the other option is you line all the cast iron and just fully update the darn thing at this point. That way you've mitigated a lot of the root intrusion risk as the line continues to age, but everything's looking good up to that point there. That would just be a very convenient, nice thing to do at that time, more than anything. That's not something that I can really push hard to recommend to fix on, but it's a ideal time to do it, let's put it that way. I highly recommend rescoping after any repairs are done to check the work. Very important to do that. Otherwise, everything prior to about 31 feet. I'm mostly focusing on the stuff that's within homeowner responsibility here. All of it is in good condition for its age, clean, has good flow. The standing water there, in my opinion, is not significant enough, nor is it displaying enough debris buildup to even recommend cleaning on it. That's not one I'm terribly worried about recommending a fix on. And that extended from about the clean out to approximately 3 feet. Got a 1/4 inch or so of water there.